Number 10. CP-1919. The signal that made scientists joke about aliens before they even understood what they were looking at. In 1967, a young researcher named Jocelyn Bell Burnell was studying radio data from the sky when she spotted something that looked wrong in the most unsettling way possible. Most space noise was messy. This was not messy. It arrived in clean, exact pulses, again and again, with a rhythm so precise it felt less like nature and more like a machine. The signal repeated every 1.337 seconds. That may not sound dramatic, but to the people reading that data, it was enough to stop the room cold. For a short time, the source was nicknamed LGM-1 for Little Green Men. They were not claiming they had found aliens, but the fact that trained scientists even went there tells you how unnatural this thing looked at first. Later, the answer turned out to be a pulsar, a neutron star spinning after the death of a massive star. That solved the mystery, but it did not remove the chill, because the first truly creepy signal we found in space was not a greeting. It was a dead star, pulsing so perfectly that it briefly passed for intelligence. Before we ever heard a possible message, we heard a cosmic corpse keeping time in the dark. Number 9. SHGB02+14A, the signal that was never strong enough to prove anything, but just strange enough to get under your skin. In the early 2000s, SETI researchers studying radio data found a candidate signal that stood out because of where it appeared and how it behaved. It was close to the hydrogen line, a frequency many scientists think would make sense for an intelligent civilization to use, because hydrogen is everywhere in the universe. That detail matters because it gave the signal a shape that felt almost intentional. Not enough to call it real evidence, not enough to declare anything historic, but enough to make people look twice. And that is what makes this one creepy. Space is full of junk signals, interference, noise, and false hope. Yet every now and then, one arrives that seems just sharp enough, just well-placed enough, to make the imagination run ahead of the evidence. SHGB02+14A never became the signal that changed history. It faded back into uncertainty. But maybe that is what makes it linger. It did not answer the question, it reopened it. It reminded us that the scariest signals are not always the clear ones. Sometimes the creepiest thing is hearing something that almost sounds like meaning, then never being able to prove whether it was real or just the universe playing tricks on your pattern-hungry brain. Number 8. The Lorimer Burst, the signal that made astronomers realize the universe had been doing something violent and strange right over our heads the whole time. In 2007, while digging through old radio telescope data, astronomers found a blast so short and so powerful that it looked almost unreal. It lasted only milliseconds, but in that tiny flash, it released an enormous amount of energy. At first, many people were cautious. Maybe it was bad data. Maybe it was interference from Earth. Maybe the signal was never really there at all. But it held up well enough to become the first recognized fast radio burst, later named the Lorimer Burst. That discovery changed the mood completely, because now the problem was no longer one weird signal. Now the problem was that the universe seemed to contain a whole class of sudden, intense radio explosions we had barely noticed before. That is the creepy part. It means the sky was not just silent with a few exceptions. It was full of extreme events we had not even learned how to hear properly yet. The Lorimer Burst was unsettling because it did not just add one mystery to astronomy. It exposed a hidden layer of the universe. It told us that while we were listening for messages, the cosmos had already been firing off bursts powerful enough to cross galaxies, and we were late to notice. Number 7. FRB121102, the signal that kept coming back. When fast radio bursts were first discovered, many scientists assumed they came from one-time disasters. A star collapses, something collides, a violent event flashes once, and the story ends there. Then, FRB121102 shattered that idea. This source did not burst once and disappear. It repeated, again and again and again. That changed everything, because repetition makes a signal feel different. A one-off blast can be filed away as an accident of nature. A repeating signal starts to feel like behavior. It starts to feel like there is a source out there doing something over time. Scientists eventually traced FRB 121102 to a dwarf galaxy billions of light-years away and proposed real physical explanations, including a highly magnetized neutron star. But even with models on the table, the emotional effect remained. Something in deep space was not just erupting once into the void. It was returning, like a knock on a door no one expected to hear twice. The human brain is built to fear patterns when it cannot explain them. And in a universe as silent as ours, the moment something repeats, it stops feeling like background noise. It starts feeling like a presence. Number 6. FRB 180916.J0158 plus 65. The signal that seemed to run on a schedule. By this point, repeating bursts were already weird, but this one pushed it further by adding rhythm. Astronomers found that FRB 180916 was not just active at random. Its bursts appeared in a cycle tied to roughly 16 days. Not like clockwork in the way a machine might behave, but close enough to turn a strange signal into something even more unnerving. Because chaos is one thing, a pattern is another. A cycle makes a signal feel almost organized. It makes the universe seem less like a storm and more like a system. Scientists came up with possible explanations. Maybe the source was orbiting another object. Maybe the geometry of its magnetic field or surrounding material let the bursts escape only at certain times. Those are real ideas, but before the math, there is the feeling. Hundreds of millions of light-years away, something was waking up, bursting, then falling quiet in a rhythm human beings could mark on a calendar. That is why this signal sticks. We are trained to hear rhythm as intention. We hear repetition and imagine a sender. We see timing and imagine control. The creepiest thing about FRB 180916 is not that it proves anything unnatural. It's that it sounds just organized enough to make your instincts lean in before your reason catches up. Number 5. SGR 1935 plus 2154. The burst that made the mystery feel much closer than it should have. Until this point, many of the weirdest radio signals felt safely far away, buried in distant galaxies where the danger was abstract and the story stayed academic. Then, astronomers saw something from a magnetar inside our own Milky Way. Magnetars are already nightmare objects. They are dead stars crushed into tiny remnants with magnetic fields so extreme they can distort the behavior of matter around them. In 2020, SGR 1935 plus 2154 produced a radio burst linked to a powerful X-ray flare, giving scientists one of their strongest clues yet that at least some fast radio bursts could come from magnetars. Scientifically, that was a breakthrough. Emotionally, it was worse. Because now, one of the strangest signal types in modern astronomy was not only happening across the universe, a version of it was happening in our own galaxy. A ruined star, relatively nearby on a cosmic scale, had shown that some of the sky's most bizarre flashes might come from objects that are already part of our neighborhood. That changes the tone. The moment a mystery moves from distant to local, it stops feeling like a story about the universe and starts feeling like part of the environment. It becomes one more reminder that the galaxy around us is not calm. It is full of dead things still powerful enough to scream. Number 4. BLC-1. The signal that seemed to come from the direction of the closest star to our own. In 2019, astronomers detected a narrowband signal while studying Proxima Centauri, the nearest star system to the Sun. The signal later became known as BLC-1. Right away, this felt different from most strange detections, because proximity changes everything. This was not some unknown object halfway across the universe. This appeared to come from the direction of the closest star in the sky. Scientists stayed careful, and for good reason. Signals like this can be caused by human-made interference, and that is still the most likely explanation. But for a while, BLC-1 forced people to sit with a very uncomfortable thought. What if the nearest star was not just a neighbor? What if it was a source? That is what makes this signal so powerful in a script like this. It was never confirmed as anything extraordinary, but it did not need to be. It only needed to exist long enough to shift the mood. For a short stretch of time, Proxima Centauri stopped looking like a distant point of light and started feeling like a possible origin. And once that happens, the whole sky changes. Because the silence no longer feels empty. It starts to feel loaded, like something close enough to know we are here has already tested the line. Number 3. The Galactic Center Radio Transient, the signal that appeared in one of the worst possible places for anything simple. Astronomers recently found a strange radio source near the center of the Milky Way that switched on, pulsed, faded, and then seemed to return in a way that did not sit neatly inside the normal categories. It did not behave like a standard pulsar. It did not slide cleanly into the boxes scientists usually use to sort the sky. It was one more reminder that even inside our own galaxy, there are signals we still do not know how to name. What makes this one especially eerie is the location. The galactic center is already an extreme place, crowded with stars, violence, magnetic chaos, and the supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A star. It already feels like the part of the galaxy where simple explanations go to die. So, when a strange radio transient starts acting up there, the atmosphere around it changes immediately. You are not just hearing an odd signal. You are hearing it from the dense, chaotic heart of the Milky Way, one of the most hostile regions we can observe. Scientists will keep comparing it to exotic stellar remnants and long-period objects. They will keep trying to place it. But before the answer arrives, the signal does something more disturbing. It reminds us that the center of our own galaxy may be crowded with sources behaving in ways we do not fully understand. We are not just surrounded by stars. We may be surrounded by categories of objects we have barely begun to recognize. Number 2. ASCAP J1832-0911, the object that turns on every 44 minutes and still refuses to fit comfortably into the picture. This is one of the strongest modern entries on the list because it combines repetition, mystery, and scientific discomfort. Astronomers found a long-period transient source that emits radio waves in a regular cycle, roughly every 44 minutes. Then the story got worse. Matching X-ray behavior meant it was not only pulsing in radio, it was acting across multiple kinds of energy in a way that did not line up neatly with what scientists expected. There are theories. Maybe it is some unusual neutron star. Maybe it is a magnetar behaving in a way we have not seen before. Maybe it belongs to a class of objects we are only now starting to uncover. But none of that fully removes the unease. Because a lot of strange signals become less creepy once they are named. This one still resists the label. It just keeps doing what it does. Every 44 minutes, something out there announces itself, then leaves us arguing over what kind of thing could behave that way. There is something deeply unsettling about a universe that still contains regular, repeating phenomena we cannot comfortably sort into our own systems. Not because it means aliens, because it means reality itself may still be stranger than our categories. Number 1. The wow signal, the most famous burst of possible meaning ever caught by human instruments. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Eman was reviewing printout data from Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope when he saw something so unusual that he circled it and wrote one word beside it: wow. The signal was strong, narrowband, and exactly the sort of thing SETI researchers thought an artificial transmission might look like. It lasted 72 seconds. Then it vanished. No confirmed repeat. No final explanation that closed the case for good. Decades later, the wow signal still hangs over astronomy because it is simple enough to haunt anyone. It did not flood the sky for hours. It did not return again and again until scientists could pin it down. It gave us one clean, sharp moment, then disappeared before we could ask the second question. That is what makes it the creepiest signal ever detected in space. Not just that it was strange, but that it behaved like the perfect tease, clear enough to matter, brief enough to escape, silent enough afterward to stay alive in the mind. Some natural explanations have been suggested, including passing objects and other non-artificial sources, but none has fully erased the emotional shape of the event. If the universe wanted to leave the deepest scar possible, it would not send a long message. It would send one burst, just enough to make us stop breathing for a second, and then it would never do it again. When you step back and look at this list, something starts to emerge. Some of these signals came from dead stars. Some came from violent bursts crossing enormous distances. Some were likely interference. Some still sit in that uncomfortable space between explanation and mystery. But nearly all of them did the same thing the moment they were detected. They made scientists stop. They made experts stare at data and ask whether the universe was being stranger than expected again. That is why space signals are so unsettling. The universe is supposed to feel cold, huge, and mostly indifferent. But every now and then, it produces a pulse, a burst, or a rhythm that feels just a little too clean, a little too timed, a little too much like something behind the noise. Maybe every signal on this list has a natural explanation. Most of them probably do. But that does not make them less creepy. In some ways, it makes them worse. Because it means the cosmos does not need intelligence to sound eerie. It can do that on its own. It can make dead stars tick like clocks. It can make distant objects burst on a cycle. It can throw a single impossible-looking signal across space, then go silent forever. And maybe that is the darkest part of all. Not that something out there is trying to talk to us, but that the universe is already full of patterns strange enough to feel alive, and we have only heard a tiny fraction of them. If this got under your skin, subscribe and click the next video on screen now.